This is a good segue because the next section that I wanted to talk about in terms of confession is the act of the penitent. That's what it calls. That's what it's
Yeah.
named, titled in the Catechism, the act of the penitent. Um, and it seems like the first act of the penitent is to make an examination of conscience,
Yeah.
right? Like that's the first thing you do prior to going to
I,
confession. So, or as some would like to say it, conversion. Um, but
you, the only person ever who's used that phrase. Yes, that's right.
but
You, Matt,
and
are
I am
some.
plural apparently. No, I am not. So what's a good examination of conscience? What is entailed in a good examination of conscience?
Yeah.
You know,
An examination
'cause
of conscience basically
how long
looks
should you do it for? You know what I mean? Like, bring me through the very practicals of it.
Yeah. An examination of conscience is looking inside and asking, what have I done that's wrong, that's sinful, that offends against God's goodness and mercy? It can be really helpful to use the Ten Commandments as a guide. So according to these commandments, how have I violated God's law? How have I sinned against these commandments? There's lots of good examinations of conscience that are out there that ask questions that can help you to like understand what falls under each category of the examination of conscience, or what falls under each category of the Ten Commandments. That like, thou shalt not kill applies to more than just murder. Right.
Right.
I might sit back and say, well, I'm not a murderer. Good. Have I deliberately tried to harm someone physically? Well, yeah, there was that bar fight I got in college, and that was bad. Okay, that's something to bring up. Or thou shalt not kill. But, I have deliberately tried to make somebody else's reputation suffer. That's a form of, it's not murder. I'm not I'm not like putting those on equal footing, but it falls into the category. But the sin is that I gossiped in this way, that I damaged somebody's reputation. But understanding that it falls in this category, that helps me to understand what kind of sin it is and what I've done. By examining our conscience, we can come to not just the deeper understanding of the sin itself and what needs to be confessed, but we can also actually be moved to deeper contrition. Like now that I see what category this falls under, or the way that this has this weight, I'm more sorry than I was before. And my sorrow is true. It is real contrition. I really and truly want to turn away from this sin. But man, now I see what this is, and I'm sorry for having done it. So the examination of conscience, actually, it's interesting because I think the examination of conscience almost begins before we even get to the examination of conscience. Rather, we have to first have something that pokes at our conscience. And often that's not an intentional thing. Very often the thing that gets me thinking I need to go to confession is a feeling, like on an emotional level, of guilt, or it's an accusation from someone else. They tell me that what I did caused them some harm. And that makes me say, all right, I need to actually examine my conscience so that I can not only apologize to this person, but so that I can bring it to God and ask for God's healing and his grace. Then maybe I pick up an examination of conscience. Like you'll find them in a lot of churches. There's like by the door or near the confessional, there's a pamphlet, Guide to Confession. And in that there's an examination. Sometimes I'll look through it. I always remember when I was a sophomore in high school, I went on a retreat, and I went to Catholic school from fourth grade on. And from the time I made my first confession until high school, I went to confession at least once a year. My parents knew that we go to confession at least once a year. So before Easter, we'd go to confession. Then in Catholic school, we did Advent and Lenten confession. So we'd go to confession at least twice a year, and sometimes even more often than that. Every once in a while, the teacher would just kind of decide, hey, we're going over, the priests are here, we're going to have confessions. And it wasn't Advent and it wasn't Lent. It was just the priest was available.
It was just the day they forgot to do any lesson planning.
Yeah, exactly. Guess what, kids? We're going to confession. So you'd go to confession, and it was really good. But I realized as I'm a sophomore in high school that every time I'd gone to confession from second grade on was basically the same thing. Bless me, Father, for I have sinned. It's been a year since my last confession. I fought with my brother. I didn't do my chores. I disobeyed my parents. And that was about it.
Right.
every time.
Right, yeah.
Well, not for nothing, but from the time you're 8 years old to the time that you're 15 years old, the types of things you get up to and the sins that you might fall into and the things that you might be doing that are wrong start to change. And it might have been true that I was fighting with my brother and disobeying my parents and failing to do my chores, but it was also true that there was a lot of other stuff that I really didn't have words for that I was doing that I knew was wrong, but I just didn't know what it was. I was given an examination of conscience and I started reading it. My first thought was, oh no, I'm going straight to hell.
Right. Oh man, this is bad.
Yeah, because I'm reading it going, oh, that's a serious sin. Oh, okay. Or, oh, I didn't realize that this fell under like this category.
Right.
I didn't realize that, doing this was this kind of severity. And I'm like, wow, I need to go to confession. So I remember going to confession and how freeing that was, because all this stuff that like I didn't have the vocabulary for, I suddenly, because I had that good examination of conscience written down that I could follow, that helped me to look inwardly, to see my own heart and to recognize what was going on, which then allowed me to say, I'm sorry.
Right.
And so that became one of the most important confessions of my entire life. So an examination of conscience can really help you not only to know and understand what your sins are, but move you even deeper into contrition and conversion.
Right. Thanks for watching today's video. Let us know what you thought down below, and don't forget to like and subscribe.